Hello. In 1571, if you can cast your minds back, Queen Elizabeth I opened the first Royal Exchange. She gave it a royal title and a license to sell alcohol. And although that building and the one that came after it was subsequently destroyed by fire, this building behind me opened in 1844 and has been trading ever since. And trading is what we're here to talk about. The next wave of banking, open mobile banking, spearheaded by Ondot. And it's going to change not only how financial institutions work, but also the expectations of their customers. So we're going to find out just what the banks think of Ondot's solution, what they're going to do about it, and what it means for the rest of us. So I went to talk to two representatives of the banking community from HSBC and from the Nationwide Building Society to find out just what their plans are in this area.
HSBC, we're really excited about the opportunity that open banking offers us to introduce some great new products and services that will actually help our customers and engage with them further. So First Direct, where I work, we've announced a partnership with a fintech called Bud to test a marketplace app. Will allow customers to aggregate all their financial products together, so they'll see what's happening in one single log-on and get some money management insight, but also then if you want to buy a product, they'll see something called a marketplace, and that'll allow them to access products beyond what First Direct and HSBC Group can offer them. So that's like one aspect. We're also, through HSBC brand, launched something called HSBC Beta, which is a permanent test and learn. We're hoping again to aggregate some accounts, but also look more closely at some of those moments of truth and where we can help customers with their spending, give them insight and let them live their life rather than thinking, oh, I need to do some banking.
Open banking is definitely the subject of choice right now in financial services. It's definitely the hot topic. And we've been working on this now for well over a year, since when the first regulation or directive came out from PSD2. We've taken a strong stance within industry as well. Paul Horlock, who was nationwide at the time, has now moved to the new payment service operator, was looking to chair what was the implementation entity initially, which is the base of how we start with the standards and the specs that will drive the basis around how consumers interact with open banking and how banks and building societies interact with third parties as well, and third parties vice versa. Now, what are we doing initially? So we've set up, obviously, programs within the society, which is there to, initially we've got to hit what the mandatory requirements are, and that's the key deliverable right now, how we comply. Then we look at things about how we compete within that environment, and I think then over time we'll look about how we can innovate in that environment as well. But for us, it's very important that we hit compliance and hit the mandatory requirements first, because that's important for the industry and for us as well.
Then I asked how they could prepare their customers for these changes.
I think the best way that we can prepare customers through it is by giving something that they can have and hold and touch and use and show them what this actually means, because it's a fairly abstract, dry sort of title at the moment, open banking, what does it mean? And it's very hard to get customers, oh, what does that mean, or why would I want to share my details, until you can see some proof points and some positive reasons why you would want to do that, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
I think there's lots of examples in the past that maybe some initiatives haven't landed so well in the industry because we haven't communicated so well. So I think it's double-barreled. I think there's the industry context that says actually the implementation entity and the regulators have to take a role in this on making sure that we have sort of standardized advertising and consumer information articles, different events, etc., so that we can really get that out there, to the general public, but probably more importantly to the journalists as well. And I think from our side as well, it's very important that we upskill our frontline staff, so the ones that are on the phones, the ones that are in branches, to make sure that any questions or queries, that they have the answers. And then from there, it's making sure that all our communications are really transparent and very open and honest around what this means and how we would move forward with this.
And what do they think about the idea of handing over control and responsibility to third parties?
I think the thing to remember with open banking is it's driven by the customer. They have a choice. This isn't the bank going and saying, we are going to share your data with so-and-so. This is a customer, being given a choice on the screen, clicking on things, giving their password, etc. to do it. And in return for that, they should be getting some value and some extra service from that, whether it's extra insight or just ability to see everything and convenience. So it's really all about making sure customers are aware it's their choice. Nothing's being forced down their throats with this. And if customers can see some value from that, which we hope they will through the propositions that we're looking to bring to market, then that's brilliant. But if they choose not to, that's fine as well. This is going to be a gradual thing. This isn't all going to happen next year and then that's it. This is a long-term change.
I think it's a great idea. I think it allows us to create a more competitive environment, a more innovative environment within the banking sector. It will drive change within traditional banking models. It will allow customers to use their data in different ways. And I think that's the crux of what open banking is. It's about changing the ownership of the data from the banks and the building societies back to the customer. And I think that's a great idea. I think there is obviously going to be some questions around security, and we are working very hard internally and at industry to make sure that we can securitize this to the extent that is necessary to make this a success.
And in an open banking environment, how could a bank differentiate itself?
I think HSBC, it's been around for 150 years, and First Direct was the original challenger bank for 28 years. And what the difference we think we're going to provide to you as a customer is a hyper-personalised, hyper-contextualised service in the future, where we'll be able to use insights from your finances to help you manage your money more painlessly than you've ever been able to before and achieve your goals that you want to. So we're quite excited about the opportunity it gives us, and we hope customers will be too in longer term, because I think they'll notice a real step change in the quality of service that they get from their bank.
From our perspective, we're looking at it from a member's perspective. We have members rather than customers, people that interact with us and people that we're there to serve. So from our perspective, we'll be looking at it as, how do we not necessarily differentiate ourselves, but how do we give contextual services? How do we give a better service to our customers in a digital environment, but also within a branch environment as well? It's about allowing us to take processes we have today, simplify those for customers. And that is the crux behind this. It's about not necessarily going, we're going to change everything overnight. It's a step change in how we simplify and how we create more efficiencies for our customers in their time and their use of financial products.
I then went to speak to Ondot and asked, what can Ondot do to help banks deliver more value and recruit and retain new customers?
With the new regulations that really open up banking, I think there are a couple of really big trends, market trends. The first one is consumers have the ability to be in charge, and that's really the core value proposition of Ondot. I think Ondot will help issuers, banks, and building societies really enable consumers to have access to all of their information and really control this information in a meaningful way so that consumers can leverage the full potential of open banking.
So, what are the benefits of the Ondot solution, both from the point of view of cardholders and the financial institutions?
So I think the core value proposition of Ondot is really to put consumers in control. So it's one thing to provide visibility, it's one thing to make it actionable. So I think the core value proposition that Ondot brings to the table is really making this information actionable. So consumers have the ability to control when, where, and how their payment instruments, cards and accounts, can be used, as well as manage their own cards as well as their dependents. And I think that's a core value prop that we bring.
Now, Ondot is not alone in the market, so what differentiates it?
As you would expect in any market where there is significant potential, as there is with the market here, particularly with open banking becoming a reality, you will have a lot of players, and I think it's a welcome trend for the industry. From our perspective, here is what we do. So from a core technology perspective, we bring three major streams. The first one is real-time payment. So we are in the real-time authorization stream so that we can allow consumers to make real-time decisions in terms of whether this particular transaction is approved or declined. The second is we have the ability to communicate with consumers in real time, before, during, and after a transaction. Third, we see all the data and we actually do interactive analytics to provide that intelligence. I believe we are the only company that I know of that brings all three of these together in order to deliver that actionable capability for consumers.
I then went to speak to Steve Walker, an analyst from Global Data. What does he think are the key challenges for the banks over the next year?
Well, there's certainly one key challenge is around security, right? Banks face 300-400% more cybersecurity attacks than any other industry, and that's because the rewards are so much higher in banking in terms of identity fraud and access to funds. And PSD2 opens the front door, really. Banks will be exposed to more risks in more places with little guidance on how to address those risks, and as things stand, full liability in the event of a data breach. So I think what they need to do there is give customers transparency and control around how their data is being shared and who and when. And we see that with the OnDot solution, being able to turn off your card in certain locations or for certain types of transaction limits makes customers feel empowered and in control of their finances under conditions that otherwise challenge that.
I then went to speak to financial journalist Georgie Frost to find out what she thinks that banks can do to help consumers feel more in control and be prepared for these changes.
I don't think the banks are doing nearly enough, if arguably anything, to prepare the consumer. I'm sure there's lots of stuff going on in the background, but in terms of what the average man and woman on the street is hearing, there's next to nothing. We're getting our letters through the post talking about changes in T's and C's, and yet at best people will file them in that drawer of to read later and never do. At worst, they'll probably just file them in the bin. And then come January, no one's really aware of what's going on, and that leaves that situation, I think, really open for one bad news story to come in, and we could set the whole process back months, if not years. This could be really beneficial for consumers. And I worry that without that kind of information, if we don't communicate to them what open banking is and what the benefits are, then I just think it leaves the situation just open to too many risks or too much communication of the risks going on, and people will be turned off.
And does she think that banks are doing enough to prepare consumers for these changes?
I think information is key, communication is key, and I think we also need to remember that there's people who aren't online, and let's not forget those people too. I think we need to bring everyone in on this journey. And that's the only way we're going to make people feel in control, is by this communication with them. And I just don't think customers are getting it. So I don't think we can look at open banking in the future unless we get this right.
OnDot has had deployments in other countries too around the world. How does that feed into its European launch?
We have 2 of the top 10 global banks in North America, where we really have a lot of market presence. We have 6 of the top 20 banks and 6 of the top 15 credit unions, and we have just over 3,000 financial institutions worldwide. So we have significant deployments in North America, in India, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, and now we are hoping to get to the European market. Now, of course, I think the demographics change, and I can't even think of Europe as a monolith, of course, so it's country by country. What we believe is that a number of lessons that we've learned, particularly from markets that have opened up the regulations, like India, really translate very well to the European market, given PSD2 and open banking.
I think in the move to open banking, for customers to be reassured enough to share their data, they need to have transparency around where it's going, the ability to turn sharing on and off, and OnDot are delivering precisely that capability.
So there we have it. The kind of open mobile banking solution that OnDot delivers is secure and represents the next wave in banking. You saw it here first.